I used to believe Lauren was the woman I would marry. We met at a small coffee shop in Austin, Texas, and for 2 years I never doubted a single thing about us. She was my future, my home, my everything. Until the 3 a.m. night started. One simple question changed it all. I just wanted to know where she was. I asked because I cared. She called me Clingy for it, and that word broke something inside me that I did not know could break. Before I begin this story, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below and hit that like button if you have ever loved someone who made you feel guilty for caring. Subscribe if you want to hear how I found my way back to myself. Now, let me take you back to where it all started, and you will understand why I did what I did that night. I still remember the first time I saw Lauren like it was yesterday. It was a Sunday afternoon in late September, and I was sitting alone at a corner table in this little coffee shop called Brewed Awakening, just a few blocks from downtown Austin. I had a book in my hand, something about philosophy that I was pretending to understand, and a cup of black coffee that had already gone cold. She walked in wearing a yellow sundress, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. There was something about the way she moved, confident but not arrogant, like she belonged wherever she went. She ordered a latte, turned around too quickly, and walked straight into me as I was heading to the counter for a refill. Coffee everywhere, all over my white shirt, all over her dress. She gasped. I laughed, and somehow that moment turned into a 3-hour conversation. We talked about everything and nothing. Our dreams, our fears, the movies we loved, the places we wanted to visit. By the time the shop was closing, I felt like I had known her my entire life. We exchanged numbers that night. Our first real date was a week later at a taco truck near Zilker Park. We sat on the grass, watched the sunset, and I knew right then that this woman was special. The months that followed were everything I had ever wanted. We cooked dinner together on weeknights, watched old movies on weekends, and took long walks through the park when the Texas heat finally broke. After 6 months, we moved in together, a small one-bedroom apartment on the east side, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I was working as a software engineer at a tech startup, and Lauren had a job in marketing at a mid-sized company downtown. Life felt stable. It felt real. I started putting money aside every month, saving for a ring. I wanted to propose on our 2-year anniversary. I had it all planned out. But somewhere around the 18-month mark, things started to shift. Lauren got promoted to a senior position at her company. I was proud of her, genuinely proud. She had worked hard for it, and she deserved every bit of success coming her way. The new role came with more responsibility, more projects, and more late nights at the office. At first, it was no big deal. She would come home around 9 p.m., tired but happy. We would eat a late dinner together and talk about our days. Then, 9 became 10. 10 became 11. Some nights she would not walk through the door until close to midnight. I never complained. I told myself this was just temporary. The big project would end, things would go back to normal, and we would have our evenings together again. I would cook her favorite meals and keep them warm in the oven. I would wait up for her, no matter how late it got. One night she came home at 1 a.m. I was sitting on the couch half asleep when I heard her keys in the lock. She looked exhausted. Her makeup smudged her hair, falling out of its clip. I asked her what happened, and she said her car broke down on the way home. She had to wait for a tow truck. I asked why she did not call me. I could have picked her up. I could have helped. She snapped at me, her voice sharp in a way I had never heard before. She said she did not want to bother me, that she handled it herself, that I did not need to worry so much. The way she said it made me feel like I had done something wrong just by caring. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me. Something felt off, but I could not put my finger on it. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself she was just stressed from work. I pushed the doubt down and tried to forget it. A few weeks later, on a Saturday evening, Lauren told me she had an emergency meeting. I looked at her confused. Saturday meetings were not a thing at her company. The office was closed on weekends. I asked her about it as casually as I could, trying not to sound accusatory. Her reaction caught me completely off guard. Her eyes narrowed and her voice turned cold. She asked me if I did not trust her. She asked why I was questioning everything she said. She made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable, like my simple question was some kind of attack on her character. I apologized immediately. I told her I was just curious, that I did not mean anything by it. She grabbed her purse and left without another word. She came home that night at 2 a.m. I pretended to be asleep when she crawled into bed beside me. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. I made breakfast, we ate together, and she kissed me on the cheek before heading out to meet a friend. Everything seemed fine on the surface, but underneath, I felt a crack forming in the foundation of everything I thought we had built. My best friend Derek called me that afternoon to check in. We had been friends since college, the kind of friendship that survives distance and time. He asked how things were going with Lauren, and I told him everything was great. I did not mention the late nights or the Saturday meeting or the way she had looked at me when I asked a simple question. I did not want anyone to think badly of her. I loved her too much for that. The next 2 months were the hardest of my life, and I did not even realize how bad things had gotten until I was deep in the middle of it. Lauren coming home at 3 a.m. became the new normal. It happened so gradually that I almost convinced myself it was fine. Almost. Every night I would lie awake in the dark, listening for the sound of her keys. Sometimes I would drift off around midnight, only to jerk awake at the sound of the front door opening hours later. I would check the clock, see those glowing numbers telling me it was 3:15 or 3:45, and feel my stomach twist into knots. I asked her about it, of course. I tried to be gentle, tried not to sound like I was accusing her of anything, and every time she had a different explanation. Working late on a deadline, drinks with coworkers to celebrate a successful campaign, car trouble again, traffic was terrible, she lost track of time. I wanted to believe her, I really did. I told myself that trust was the foundation of any relationship, and if I started doubting her without evidence, I would become the kind of jealous, insecure person I never wanted to be. So I swallowed my questions and smiled and told her I was glad she was home safe. But my body knew something my mind refused to accept. I stopped sleeping through the night. I would wake up at 2 a.m., heart pounding, and could not fall back asleep until I heard her come home. My appetite disappeared. I lost 15 pounds in 2 months without trying. At work, I could not focus. I made mistakes I never would have made before. My manager pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay at home. I told him I was fine, just tired. Derek was the one who finally said what I could not bring myself to think. He called me one evening and asked if I wanted to grab a beer after work. We met at a sports bar near my office, and for the first 20 minutes we just talked about normal stuff. Football, work, a video game we both wanted to try. Then he got quiet. He set down his beer and looked at me with an expression I did not like. He told me he had something to say and he did not know how I was going to take it. He said he saw Lauren a few nights ago at a bar downtown. She was sitting in a booth with some guy Derek did not recognize. They were sitting close, laughing, touching each other's arms. Derek said it looked like more than just two coworkers grabbing drinks. I felt my face get hot. I told Derek he must have been mistaken. Lauren would not do that. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a client dinner. Maybe the guy was gay. Maybe Derek saw someone who just looked like her. Derek held up his hands and said he was just telling me what he saw. He said he hoped he was wrong. He said he was only bringing it up because he cared about me and did not want to see me get hurt. I should have listened. Instead, I got angry. I told Derek he was jealous because I had a girlfriend, and he did not. I told him to mind his own business. I threw some cash on the table and left without finishing my beer. When I got home that night, I confronted Lauren. I told her what Derek said. I expected her to be shocked, offended, ready to explain. Instead, she started crying. She said Derek had always been jealous of our relationship. She said he probably wanted to break us up so he could have me to himself for guy nights and video games like the old days. She made me feel like Derek was the villain, like I should be angry at him for trying to poison my mind against her. I believed her. I actually believed her. The next day I called Derek and told him to stop spreading lies about Lauren. I told him if he could not support my relationship, maybe we should not hang out for a while. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I will never forget. He said he hoped he was wrong. He said he really did. And then he hung up. That phone call ended a friendship that had lasted almost a decade, all because I was too blind to see what was right in front of me. A few weeks later, I found out the truth myself. It was a Tuesday night and Lauren had just gotten home from another late evening at the office. She said she needed a shower to wash off the stress of the day. She dropped her phone on the nightstand and disappeared into the bathroom. I was not planning to look at her phone. I never had before, but it kept buzzing over and over and the screen kept lighting up. I glanced over just to see if it was something urgent. Maybe her mom was trying to reach her. Maybe there was a work emergency. The name on the screen was Tyler. Next to the name was a little heart emoji. The preview of the message read, "Cannot wait to see you again tomorrow night. You looked amazing today." My hands started shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I did not pick up the phone. I did not read more. I just sat there staring at that screen, feeling everything I thought I knew crumble into dust. Lauren came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. She saw me looking at her phone and her expression changed instantly. She snatched it off the nightstand and demanded to know why I was going through her things. Her voice was sharp, accusatory, like I was the one who had done something wrong. I asked her who Tyler was. She rolled her eyes and said he was just a coworker. She said I was being paranoid and jealous and making a big deal out of nothing. She said the heart emoji was just how they communicated at work, that it did not mean anything. Then, she turned off the light and got into bed, leaving me sitting there in the darkness with 1,000 questions and 0 answers. The weeks that followed were the loneliest of my life. Lauren and I lived in the same apartment, slept in the same bed, but we might as well have been strangers. She barely spoke to me. When I tried to initiate conversation, she would give one-word answers and go back to her phone. The dinner dates stopped. The movie nights stopped. The laughter stopped. I tried everything I could think of to fix things. I bought her flowers. I cooked her favorite meals. I left little notes around the apartment telling her how much I loved her. She would glance at the flowers, say thanks, and walk away. She would take a few bites of dinner and say she was not hungry. She would read my notes, crumple them up, and throw them in the trash. One night I broke down and called my older brother Marcus. He lived in Chicago with his wife and 2 kids, and we did not talk as often as we should have. But that night, I needed someone who would listen without judging me. I told him everything. The late nights, the excuses, the text from Tyler, the way Lauren had been treating me. Marcus listened quietly until I was done. Then he said something that stuck with me. He said sometimes love is not enough. He said sometimes you have to know when to walk away, not because you do not care, but because staying is destroying you. I told him I was not ready to give up. I told him I still loved her. He said he understood, but he asked me to think about whether she still loved me back. I did not have an answer for that. The night everything changed started like so many others. It was a Friday, and Lauren had left for work that morning with barely a goodbye. I spent the day at the office trying to focus on code that kept blurring in front of my eyes. By the time I got home, I was exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix. I made myself a sandwich, watched some television, and waited. 9 o'clock came and went, then 10, then 11. By midnight, I was pacing the living room, checking my phone every few minutes. No texts, no calls, nothing. At 1 a.m., I sent her a message. Just checking in. Hope work is going okay. No response. At 2 a.m., I called her. It went straight to voicemail. At 3 a.m., I tried again. This time she picked up. Her voice was strange, cold and distant, but also annoyed, like I had interrupted something important. I asked her where she was. I told her I was worried. It was 3 in the morning and I had no idea if she was safe. What happened next is something I will never forget as long as I live. She started screaming at me through the phone. She said I was too clingy. She said I was suffocating her. She said she could not breathe with me constantly checking up on her, constantly wanting to know where she was, constantly needing her attention. She said she needed space, that I was controlling, that my constant worry was driving her crazy. I stood in the middle of our living room, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something inside me go very still. All the anger I expected to feel did not come. All the hurt I had been carrying for months seemed to crystallize into something hard and cold. I said one word. Okay. Then she hung up. I stood there for a long time after that. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe an hour. I do not know. I just stood in the darkness of our apartment, the phone still in my hand, and thought about the last 2 years. All the love I had given, all the trust I had offered, all the times I had blamed myself for feeling worried, for feeling suspicious, for feeling like something was wrong. She called me Clingy. Clingy for asking where she was at 3 a.m. Clingy for caring whether she was safe. Clingy for loving her enough to wait up every single night. That was when I realized the truth. I was not the problem. I had never been the problem. The problem was that I had given everything to someone who saw my love as a burden, my care as a cage. Lauren came home at 4:30 that morning. She did not say a word to me. She walked straight past me like I was furniture, went into the bedroom and closed the door. Within minutes, I could hear her breathing change as she fell asleep. I sat on the couch until the first light of dawn started creeping through the windows. Then I made my decision. I went into the bedroom and looked at her sleeping form. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. For a moment, I felt a pang of something like grief. Grief for the relationship I thought we had. Grief for the future I had imagined. Grief for the version of her I had fallen in love with, the one who maybe never really existed. Then I went to the closet and pulled out my suitcase. I packed quietly, carefully, taking only what I needed. Clothes, my laptop, my important documents, a few photos of my family. Everything else could stay. Everything else belonged to a life I no longer wanted. I left my keys on the kitchen counter. Next to them, I placed a single piece of paper. I'd thought about what to write for a long time. In the end, I kept it simple. You said I was clingy, so I'm giving you all the space you need. Goodbye. At 5:30 a.m., I walked out of that apartment for the last time. I did not look back. I drove for hours. I did not have a destination in mind at first. I just knew I needed to put distance between myself and Austin, between myself and the life I was leaving behind. Somewhere around noon, I stopped for gas in New Mexico and looked at a map on my phone. Denver, Colorado caught my eye. It was far enough away that no one would think to look for me there. It was a fresh start in every sense of the word. I arrived in Denver late that night, exhausted and emotionally drained. I checked into a cheap motel near downtown and slept for 14 hours straight. When I woke up, I had 47 missed calls from Lauren and over 100 text messages. Where are you? This is not funny, Mason. Come back right now. We need to talk. I am sorry. Please, just tell me where you are. I read through them all, feeling nothing. Then I turned off my phone and went to find breakfast. The first week in Denver was strange. I felt like a ghost drifting through a city where no one knew my name. I spent my days in coffee shops, applying for jobs online, trying to figure out what my life was supposed to look like now. At night, I lay in my motel bed and stared at the ceiling, waiting for the grief to hit me. It never did. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. After 10 days, I found a job at a small tech company that was willing to let me start immediately. The salary was decent, the work was interesting, and nobody there knew anything about my past. I was just Mason, the new software developer, quiet, but competent. I rented a studio apartment in a building near Cheeseman Park. It was small, barely enough room for a bed and a desk, but it had a window that looked out over the city, and at night I could see the lights twinkling like earthbound stars. I changed my phone number. I deleted all my social media accounts. I did not tell anyone except Marcus where I had gone, and I made him promise not to share that information with anyone. He kept his word. The first 6 months were hard in ways I did not expect. I would wake up at 3 a.m. out of habit, heart racing, reaching for someone who was not there. I would see women with dark hair on the street and feel my chest tighten before realizing it was not her. I would hear a certain song or smell a certain perfume and be transported back to a time when I thought I was happy. But slowly, gradually, things got better. I started going to the gym every morning before work. I took up hiking on weekends, exploring the trails around Boulder and Rocky Mountain National Park. I made a few friends at work, people who invited me to happy hours and baseball games and did not ask too many questions about my past. I called Derek one night about 8 months after I left Austin. I apologized for everything, for not believing him, for choosing Lauren over our friendship, for being so blind and stubborn and stupid. He was quiet for a long moment, and I thought maybe he was going to hang up on me. Then he laughed and said it was about time I pulled my head out of my rear end. Just like that, we were okay again. 3 years passed. 3 years of rebuilding, of healing, of learning who I was when I was not trying to be what someone else wanted. I got promoted twice at work and eventually became a team lead. I saved enough money to buy my own place, a 2-bedroom condo with a view of the Rocky Mountains that still takes my breath away every time I see it. And then I met Sophie. She was a graphic designer at my company, and we had been working on the same project for months before I finally got the courage to ask her to coffee. She was different from Lauren in every way that mattered. She was honest sometimes, brutally so. She listened when I talked and actually heard what I was saying. She never made me feel like my feelings were too much or my concerns were unreasonable. We had been dating for 8 months when it happened. It was a Saturday afternoon and I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop working on some personal coding projects. The door opened and I glanced up out of habit. My heart stopped. Lauren was standing in the doorway looking around the shop like she was searching for someone. When her eyes landed on me, her whole face changed. Relief, hope, desperation, all mixed together in an expression that made my stomach turn. She walked over to my table and sat down across from me without asking permission. Up close, I could see how much she had changed. She looked tired, older somehow, with dark circles under her eyes and a thinness to her face that suggested she had not been taking care of herself. She said she'd been looking for me for 3 years. She said she hired a private investigator. She said she never stopped thinking about me, never stopped regretting what she did. I asked her why she was here. The tears started then. She told me Tyler meant nothing. She said it was a mistake, a stupid mistake that she regretted every single day. She said Tyler left her after a few months, that he was never serious about her, that she threw away something real for something that was never going to last. She begged me to give her another chance. She said she had changed. She said she understood now what she had lost. She said she would do anything at all if I would just come back. I let her talk. I did not interrupt. I did not argue. I just listened the way I had listened to so many of her excuses all those years ago. When she was done, I took a deep breath. I told her that she had called me clingy for caring about her. She had made me feel like I was the problem, like something was fundamentally wrong with me for wanting to know if the woman I loved was safe at 3 a.m. I spent months thinking I was broken, that my love was too much, that I needed to change who I was. I told her I was not angry anymore. That was the truth. The anger had faded a long time ago, replaced by something that felt like peace. But I was not coming back. That was also the truth. The man who loved her, who would have done anything for her, who saved money for a ring and dreamed about their future together, that man did not exist anymore. She had killed him the night she screamed that I was suffocating her. I stood up and put some money on the table for my coffee. Before I left, I turned back to her one last time. I hope you find what you are looking for, I said. I really do. But it is not me. Not anymore. Then I walked out of that coffee shop and did not look back. That night, I went home and told Sophie everything. She listened without interrupting, her hand on mine, her eyes never leaving my face. When I was done, she did not say anything profound or try to offer advice. She just wrapped her arms around me and held on tight. I slept better that night than I had in years, not because Lauren had finally gotten what she deserved, not because I had won some kind of victory. I slept well because I realized I was finally truly free. The last thread connecting me to that old life had been cut, and I was lighter for it. A week later, I called Derek and told him what happened. He laughed so hard I thought he was going to choke. He said he always knew I would figure it out eventually. He said he was proud of me. Then he booked a flight to Denver for the following month so he could meet Sophie and see my new life for himself. When I look back at the last 3 years, I do not see them as time lost or time wasted. I see them as the journey I needed to take to become the person I was always supposed to be. The first few months in Denver were painful. There were nights when the loneliness felt like a physical weight on my chest, when I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake, when I almost picked up the phone to call her and beg to come home. But I did not. I kept moving forward one day at a time, and eventually the pain faded. It did not disappear completely. I do not think it ever does. But it became manageable a scar instead of an open wound. The healing came in unexpected ways. It came from the sunrise over the mountains on my first solo hike. It came from the satisfaction of solving a difficult coding problem at work. It came from the first time I made Sophie laugh so hard she snorted coffee out of her nose. It came from rebuilding my friendship with Derek and realizing that some bonds are stronger than any mistake. Sophie taught me something important. She showed me that love does not have to be exhausting. It does not have to leave you constantly wondering where you stand or whether you are enough. Real love feels like coming home, like safety, like peace. It is two people choosing each other every single day, not because they have to, but because they want to. I learned that walking away is not the same as giving up. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is recognize that a situation is destroying you and choose yourself instead. I did not leave Lauren because I stopped loving her. I left because I finally started loving myself. I learned that you cannot fix someone who does not think they are broken. I spent months trying to be better, trying to be less needy, trying to shrink myself into a shape that would not bother her. But the problem was never my shape. The problem was that she did not want me there at all. I learned that time does not heal all wounds, but it gives you the space to heal yourself. The work has to come from within. You have to choose every single day to let go of the anger and the hurt and the what-ifs. You have to build a new life brick by brick until one day you look around and realize you have created something beautiful from the rubble. Most importantly, I learned that being called clingy for caring is not an insult. It is information. It tells you that the person you are with does not value your love the way it deserves to be valued. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. These days, my life looks different than I ever imagined it would. I live in a city I never planned to call home, with a woman I never expected to find doing work that challenges and fulfills me. I have a view of the mountains from my bedroom window and a best friend who flies out to visit whenever he can. I have peace. If someone ever makes you feel guilty for loving them, remember this. You deserve someone who appreciates your love, not someone who uses it against you. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and never look back. I want to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever been made to feel like you were too much for someone? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from someone you loved? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is going through the same thing right now. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss any of the stories we share here. Every like, every comment, every share helps more people find these stories and know that they are not alone. Thank you for being here and for listening to my story. I hope it gave you something to think about, or maybe even the courage to make a change in your own life. Whatever you are going through right now, remember that you are worthy of love that does not make you question yourself. You are enough exactly as you are. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.